Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP, and this is going to be an important video for the channel because it kind of wraps up a lot of stuff um, about my journey through MBTI and how knowing that I was INFP for such a long time has helped me on my journey towards self-discovery, self-development, growth, recovery, and my autism journey. So obviously all INFPs are not autistic, all autistic people are not INFP. Is there even more of a correlation between INFP and autism than for other types? I don't know, I don't think so. But I happen to be that combination. Anyway, I want to start this video by thinking about Bufo, our friend of the channel, Bufo. Her partner died, her dad died, her cat died within the same year, and it's really tragic and sad, and she probably does not want any publicity around it. However, I do think that it's important to acknowledge how important the INFP community has been for me and how these relationships that I have with the people on here are real, despite the fact that I've never met these people. The only person I've met is sick, and even then we only met once, and it doesn't matter because even if we haven't met, we are a community, and this has been really important to me. And I've never met Bufo in real life, and I've only seen her partner and her dad through the videos. They would sometimes pop in, and it's just like, these are people that they existed. They still exist, but it's not physically in this world as living beings. But they existed and they were real, but it's strange because I never got to meet them. So, and it does affect me. It really saddened me, and I felt my day was tough waking up and finding out about that. And I think that being part of this community, knowing these people, has really helped me on my journey. And I hope to be able to support other INFPs on their journey and just other people in general. So it's because now my YouTube channel isn't 100% about INFP. There's also the autism aspect, and just I talk about other things as well, but my experience is at the center of it. So I know that a lot of people are going through really difficult times in the INFP community, and I won't go through everybody's problems that they've told me in secret, but yeah, things are difficult for us all, and it's just lovely to be able to connect when it's so difficult to be out and about in the real world. I also want to do a little bit of a jump to Vondelpete's video, because it seems like we have this kind of synchronicity thing going on with the INFP community, that like somebody will think of a thing, and then like I'll be thinking of making this video, and then like I already filmed a version of this video, and then Vondelpete came with a video that was in a similar vein. So his video is about talking to his 20-year-old self, and as a 40-year-old, so somebody that's half his age. Now I'm almost 30, so half my age would be 15, which goes back to the MBTI, because I found out about MBTI at age 15. The reason for that was that I was in a really, really dark spot. I was at my worst. I was suicidal. I was not doing well. I was really moody, angsty, middle school, high school, not the best time. I didn't know that I was that undiagnosed autistic. I thought the world sucked and I didn't have any coping strategies. So my escape from all of that was the internet. And sometime during, so when I was 15, 14, 15, I received a laptop for Christmas. So yeah, I must have just turned 15. Yeah, so I got a laptop for Christmas. It was a very slow laptop. It didn't work that well, but it was a humongous difference from using my family computer. And I used it mostly to go on LiveJournal, go to look up Harry Potter forums. I played some simulation games on there. I scrolled through a lot of Tumblr because I got my Tumblr, like as soon as I got the computer, I got the Tumblr. So it was the 31st of December 2011, so 1st of January 2012 must have been. So I must have been around 16 then, something like that. Anyway, I thought at first, when I was 15, before all the Tumblr and all that, I was on Personality Cafe, and I found out about all of this whole world of cognitive functions, and I thought at first I was an INFJ, and then that I was an ISFJ, and I couldn't figure it out, so I got myself typed on Personality Cafe, and so when I was around 17, I think, was when I figured out that I was an INFP. So that was more than 10 years ago, more like 12 years ago. So I've known about me being an INFP for 12 years, and I've known about the MBTI system, and that I wasn't the same as everybody else, personality-wise, since I was 15. So, all that to say that I was really, really helped by knowing this. Thing is, with MBTI, like with all systems, all labels, there are negatives of having a label, which is that you might excuse yourself from a bunch of things that you might need to take accountability for. You can't just say oh, I'm doing this because I'm an INFP, I can't help it. Of course, I don't advocate for using MBTI in that way. I also don't think that we should use MBTI labels to, limit ourselves and say, oh, anything that INFPs are not supposedly good at, I cannot even dare to try because I am an INFP and I won't be able to get outside of my comfort zone. And I am an INFP and that is my only identity. And start acting like an INFP because you know about the label, so you become that label. I do not advocate for that. But I think that in general, the labels have helped me. And so the biggest label that I had was INFP. And it helped me get through a lot because I knew that because MBTI and autism is very similar in certain ways, in that both of these things are, from early childhood or birth almost, but not really birth, but, the first years of your life, and you develop it, and it's coupled to your personality, and it doesn't change over time. At least according to the classical theory of it, of MBTI. So I think that having that framework already in my mind really helped me to understand the autism stuff later on. Sorry, I have to catch that fruit fly. Okay, it seems like I have an infestation of fruit flies. Okay. We're talking about INFP, how it's a good label in order to understand autism later on and to understand my growth. So I figured that, okay, so I can't always be focusing on my weaknesses because my weaknesses, everybody's strengths is my weakness, and my strengths are other people's weakness. So we're just different. It's not me that's broken. I'm just different. And that is a similar kind of vein as the autism, I'm not broken, I'm just different. My strengths will not be other people's strengths. I am different. That doesn't need to be negative, And also, I have strengths that other people don't have. And so I think that's the INFP perspective on things made me more confident in myself that I could be myself around other people. And so I don't think that I masked as much throughout my teenage years and my young adult years because I knew that I was an INFP. And so I knew that, people should take me as I am, take it or leave it. I cannot pretend to be a neurotypical or an ESTJ, or a sensor. I cannot pretend to be somebody that I am not, because that is going to take too much of my energy, and that is just going to lead to me being in more stress, and it's not conducive to any self-development in a sense. So that has helped me on my autism journey as well, because I don't have that much of some level 1 autistic people like me have masked to an extreme degree, but I knew already at age 15 when I figured out about the MBTI. I didn't know I was an INFP yet, but I thought that I was maybe an INFJ. I figured, okay, so I'm not like everybody else, and I will have to, in order for me to get through this world, I'll have to be unmasked. I'll have to mask to a certain degree in order to manage, but that wasn't my default state of being out in the world all the time, to the point of losing my own personality. I think that I had a sense of who I was because of the personality type. I'm not just an INFP. I'm plenty of other things. I'm not just autistic. I'm plenty of other things. But it does give a kind of grounding, a foundation to lay on, so that you can build the walls of your house so that everything doesn't just go crumbling down. The foundation is important. And we all construct frameworks to understand ourselves. Some people just do it with more labels than others, but some people base a lot of their identity around being gay, for example. Some people base a lot of their identity around their nationality. Some people base it along their astrology sign. There are plenty of ways to figure this out, and plenty of frameworks to learn about. Some people in certain countries base their personality around their blood type. I had a patient who asked me to take their blood type because they were just curious, and I was like, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't pay for that with socialized medicine. But yeah, she came from a culture where knowing your blood type was extremely important. And yeah, so we base our identity out around different things, and it's very important for us to navigate the world, because otherwise we're living in a world with no definitions, with no contours around different things, with no discernment, And knowing how our brain works is actually really helpful. And it doesn't need to be scientific in order for it to be a helpful model, you know? So I think that the people who are really into MBTI, like me, we need to stop. Um, we need to stop like dismissing the impact that MBTI has had on our lives, um, just because it is not scientific, or it's there's no basis like that you can prove in reality. You know, it's a framework and it's a way to just figure this complex world out. And, you know, it's the same with diagnoses. They're not actually, you know, there are very few objective markers of things going on. Um, the field of psychiatry is very fuzzy, and we've created these discrete categories in order to figure things out, in order to for people to get help that is, you know, semi-individualized but semi the same as other people, so that we can like sort people into different categories, because that is helpful thing to do in the world. I mean, it can also cause division, right? But we do, in a certain sense, have to classify people. I do this a lot in my work as a doctor, not to discriminate people against each other, but you know, we need to discriminate certain people in terms of putting them in a certain grouping, you know, not in terms of like judging one group is better than the other or whatever, but knowing that there are different ways of thinking, different neurotypes, right? Different personality types, helps me understand myself, and it helps understand my relation with others, and it helps me understand that others don't have the same way of thinking as I do. So for me, the MBTI is very similar to the neurodiversity paradigm. You know, the neurodivergence is kind of separate, but we are all neurodiverse, and we all have different personalities, and certain of these personalities can be grouped together into a personality type, right? And certain of these neurodiversities can be grouped together into the neurodivergent group and the neurotypical group. And within the neurodivergent group, there is the autistic group, the ADHD group, the Tourette's group, you know? And so we do these classifications to make sense of the world. And I think that having that mindset a little bit since more than 10 years back helped me understand a little bit the current, at least, autism paradigm, and the current neurodivergence denominations and all that. So I kind of was introduced to these things pretty early on. I also think that autism is very, you know, I also was introduced to the concepts of like, oh, like math smarts and book smarts are not totally separate things through the MBTI, you know. Also knowing that emotions can be logical and logic can be subjective was also very important for me in my, you know, my journey of understanding myself and others, and my personality and the way that my brain works. I also understood that empathy was different for myself compared to other people, because I knew about the FI-FE divide. which helped me later on with my autism, understanding that, okay, so autism isn't just about, isn't about lack of empathy, because it's absolutely not about lack of empathy. Empathy is a skill on its own, pretty much. Cognitive empathy does have some kind of link with mentalization, which has maybe a link to autism, but it is not part of the diagnostic criteria that you lack up empathy to get the autism diagnosis. A lot of autistic people are hyper empathetic, and some of them are low empathy, but it is about your values, it's about the way that you see the world and your cognition, and that is what the cognitive functions of MBTI are about. So understanding all of that was important. Also understanding that I couldn't just live in the world and trying to, my weaknesses will always stay my weaknesses. They will never become my strengths. I can develop my weaknesses so that I can, like, manage in life, and in order to lead the meaningful life we need to use all of our functions, but I don't need to work so hard to try to be an ESTJ. If I do focus too much on my inferior function and my weaknesses, then I end up in that grip state, right? And the grip is not a good place to be, where you're extremely stressed and you just turn into a bad version of an ESTJ if you're a stressed INFP. And we cannot sustain being in the ESTJ state for all eternity. So understanding that as an autistic person, I cannot be neurotypical. I can just pretend to be and it's a bad representation of a neurotypical. I cannot, it's better for me to, as an autistic person, I can work on things that I have difficulty with, but I also need to play to my strengths, and that will help me better in the end. I also think that, so I'd be more myself through the INFP thing. Also, I've been more open-minded towards self-diagnosis because, I'm a self-diagnosed INFP. Somebody on Personality Cafe told me that I was INFP, but in the end, it was me who decided that. Then, autism, there's the official diagnosis, which is way more powerful than getting a MBTI personality official typing, but still, there is this kind of fandom, how do you say, a community. There's always discourse in every community. So in the MBTI community, it's like, oh, that you gotten typed, you self-typed yourself wrong, all that. And there is a discourse in the autism community of like the self-typing, is it self-diagnosing, is it okay? So I'm completely fine with that. I do think that it is nice to have an official diagnosis because it has helped me a lot to stop this whole doubting process. However, I think that knowing that the INFP, that I am self-diagnosed INFP, pretty much self-typed INFP, that I've been able to live in the state of doubt and being able to be sure of myself. So yes, I had extreme anxiety and a lot of stress and doubt and all that before my autism diagnosis, because it's a state of limbo where you're not sure. But I think that it would have been even worse had I not been in that state before concerning my MBTI. So even if that state had been, 10, 15 years ago, it was still a useful experience to have been through. That is like, okay, I've been able to be a certain, I've been able to put these markers in front of me. I think that, I talked to my ESFP colleague during after work about, have you ever questioned your sexuality? And she was like, no, I've never, she's never questioned her sexuality. And I was like, wow, what a nice life to live. You never have to question anything. And she was like, yeah, there are plenty of things to worry about, but she's never questioned her sexuality. And I'm like, wow, yeah, so basically my whole life as an INFP is about questioning who am I, right? And she just doesn't do that. And I think that a lot of people don't do that. But I think that having done that for so much of my life and, found peace with certain labels, it also paved the way for my current journey at the moment with autism diagnosis. So this questioning state as an INFP, I'm always in a questioning state. So I think that I am okay with that. And by knowing that I'm an INFP, I realize, so it's okay for me as an INFP to be in this questioning state. It's part of who I am to be a person who has all these thoughts and all these doubts. And had I not, maybe if I had been typed in as an ESTJ, maybe I would think, oh, where are all these doubts coming from? That's not supposed to be that way, But I am an INFP, and so this whole thing, it all makes sense. And that's the thing, is that this foundation of MBTI, of knowing my type, things make sense to me, at least. Maybe it doesn't make sense to anybody else, but it makes sense to me, and that is such a security, a safety net of like, okay, so I can I can trust myself, and that's the whole point of this channel. Okay, I started it because I was an INFP medical student, and I didn't see any other INFP medical students or doctors. Sometimes there will be somebody in my comments who will say, I'm an INFP doctor. And that has happened maybe just a handful of times. There's an INFP medical student who has actually been inspired by me to go through medical school and all that, which is lovely. I don't want to push anybody in any direction, but I do want people to follow their dreams. And it's not just about showing that it is possible for an INFP to become a doctor. It's also about that I have had to forge this person, this life, this model, because there was no model, there was no role model. So I had to become my own role model, right? I had to pave the way for other people. Be the INFP YouTuber that I am, I wouldn't call myself an influencer, but I need to show that it is possible to be a person like me in this world, right? And I want to show other people that are like me that it is possible for them to be themselves and to follow their dreams in the world. And that I can trust myself, that I am capable enough to take on these things into the world. And it's a process, right? At the moment, I'm at the point where I can trust myself, that I know who I am, that kind of thing. That's good for foundation for self-confidence. My goal is maybe to get into a place where I believe that I'm truly capable of the things that I am capable of doing, and to gain wisdom and self-confidence out of all of that. I'm not there yet, right? And I don't know if I'll ever get there, but that is where I'm moving towards. And I do find this trust in that, okay, so I know myself because I've been through all of this journey of self-discovery throughout all this time, and the journey isn't at its end. We're just in the middle of it, and it just keeps going. And this journey will keep going until I die, and until all the people, that have been inspired by me or that remember me, until they die, I will have it been just one little thing in their journey, a little piece of sand, like under their boot, all have been just one thing. But that one thing can spark, like it can be a seed for more self-development of other people in the world. And I think, I don't want to, self-aggrandize this channel into a bigger thing than it is, but it is wonderful to see people be helped by this channel. But who is the person who's been helped the most by this channel? It's me. I helped myself most with this channel. I think that so by creating this person, I've gained so much knowledge of myself, self-confidence in myself by creating this channel, and by knowing that I was an INFP, that okay, so this is my personality, this is who I am. I can do things with who I am. This is what I've been given, and I'm going to use it to the fullest, and I'm going to be that person that follows my dreams and crafts a whole life for themselves. And sometimes it feels like I'm just passively going around being tossed and turned through life, but I think that by knowing that there's a certain stability in the storm, not that, like, I can change, I can become better at things, I can discard certain things that don't serve me, I can do this, but I will still be me in all of this, and this me can change, but I'm still there, and there is that foundation, so I can walk on the foundation and not drown in quicksand, and sure, this path is like very confusing and difficult, but I have solid ground to walk on, so I can like keep on going in this world like this. And so the INFP label has been very important to me in creating this foundation and being that person that I want to be, and I don't need to pretend to be anybody else. I don't need to act against my nature in order to be who I want to be. I can live, I can exist as a human being in this world with the help of MBTI. And so I sometimes it just seems like I'm accumulating diagnoses, things. Maybe in 10 years I'll find out that I have some other labels, other thing. But, and it will be a big thing for me as well. But it's going to help me keep bringing this wisdom with me, and so that I can use it for myself, but also help others through it. When I see people that, when they see me and they're like, it's always embarrassing because it's like, I don't want to have that power of that person. But unbeknownst to me, I'm actually having an impact on other people. And it's kind of like what Volapete was saying about being that person. What would 15-year-old me think of me now? What would 20-year-old me think of me now? Well, I think that, I had completely different expectations of life at that time. But the question isn't really that. The question is more, am I now the person that my 15-year-old self would have needed? Am I the person that the 20-year-old self would have needed? And the answer is yes. I would definitely have had some good use out of current me, because current me has learned so much. And, you know, okay, so I am only 30, but I am more wise than I was at 20 and more wise than I was at 15. And that wisdom could have been really helpful for my younger self. And so I'm providing that now to other people. But, you know, and I don't have any regrets about not having that person be there for me. You know, things were they were, but I can be content in the fact that, okay, so this whole journey, this whole process was not for nothing. It was very important that I went through that process, and it is the path of growth. So I am proud of current me, and I'm proud of past me. My past me has led me to who I am now today. And I think that, you know, my future me will look back fondly on myself now and all of that. And it's beautiful, and it's life. And I think that, you know, it's very important for me to discuss this on this channel, because this whole channel is about this. And I think that I will end this video now because we're at 36 minutes. But please tell me how MBTI has affected your life. And yeah, have a good day. If you don't have a good day, have at least an okay day. If you can't have that, you know, I hope that you have better days ahead. You know, keep fighting, because at a certain point you will be on the other side of all of that, and you will realize that you have grown into a beautiful, wonderful person. So yeah, have a good day, everybody. Bye.